How can you be sure when you meet someone in a relationship that, and you feel immediately attracted to them, that that person is in fact going to be conducive to an enjoyable experience?
If I were in that situation myself, I'll answer it that way, and I was a single person and dating, and I met someone, and I know what I know now, I would be very much interested in the ways that were alike and the ways that are different. In other words, I would look very much at the primary self systems of the other person and myself. I would look at the disowned selves. I also would make sure that no commitments were made whatsoever on any level until enough time had passed that I could see what was under the primary self system in the other person. That would be essential. If you jump too quickly in relationship, you're jumping into the primary self system. I'll tell you a very, very quick, funny story about that. A businessman, this is a couple that came to see us, businessman, very successful, high-powered, busy, goes to Hawaii once a year, to one of the islands, where he lets down and he shifts from his pusher primary self to his beach bum primary self. He's done that every year for 5-10 years. The last time he meets a woman who lives on the island of Kauai, and she is an absolute Kauai type, you know, soft, loving, caring, has a business there. They fall in love, and in that month they meet, fall in love, get married. The month is now over. They're just crazy about each other. They come back to his huge, super mega buck home in the Bay Area, and he goes to work. Goes back to the original primary self, and this poor woman did not know what hit her. He wasn't being mean, he was just being who he was 11 months out of the year. And she went crazy, filled with rage and disillusion and disappointment. But really it was very simple, you see. She was identified with the Kauaian primary self. And when he was there, he was that, and they met and were very vulnerable and so forth. When he went back to San Francisco, Kauai went underground, and he had no idea what was bothering her. He just was doing what he did. So in meeting somebody, you have to find out what's going on. What are the primary and disowned selves? How does the person respond when she's vulnerable or he's vulnerable? What's their predisposition? And I wouldn't even consider any sort of commitment until a very considerable amount of time had passed and one could really see. The other thing about time passing is you get a chance from the unconscious to see how your dreams are. Another important thing is, how does your child feel about the other person?
That's the inner child.
The inner child. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. The inner child, because you see, a lot of times we may fall in love with somebody, but the inner child, when you talk to the inner child, you'd be shocked at what the inner child might say about the person.
Because they feel differently often. They have the inner children tune in to something other than the primary selves. And they have a great deal of wisdom. The other thing to note is what we've been talking about, which is that you're very attracted to your disowned selves. And this is extraordinarily attractive in the beginning and far less attractive once you've been together for a while.
So the guy from, the high-powered guy from San Francisco who went to the Hawaiian island, who was attracting her? Was it his pusher, disowned self that felt strongly attracted to the open, cool, loving person that the woman was?
His primary self would have been attracted to this woman because she carried the opposite.
And she would have been attracted to his pusher?
And at some level, she would have been attracted to his pusher and not known it.
That's the work she would have had to do if she could do it. She would have to embrace her own pusher in order to be with him.
Because you don't, you know, if she was attracted to somebody that powerful and that pushing, she must have that strong a pusher or a power underneath that's waiting to be released.
I know a divorce lawyer who said the most common remark he ever heard from people who got divorced was, I never knew they were really like that underneath. Is this because the others arise?
Yes, absolutely, because you're dealing with primary selves, and all the disowned selves aren't part of the marriage. Very often in voice dialogue, we're talking to these disowned selves, and we say, well, apparently you were never at the marriage ceremony. You've never been part of the marriage. And the disowned self, that's right, I've never been there. Well, yeah.
The other thing that happens is when you fall in love and you're all excited and you're really attracted to somebody, your primary self may be asleep for a while because everything is so delicious. And then your primary self only comes in when the vulnerability hits or discomfort hits or you're back at work or the first challenge arises.
So is it possible to find somebody who you can match all your selves to?
Our experience is that as you unhook from primary selves, you begin to pull into your orbit people in general and partners in particular that belong to you and that fit. We've just seen that happen so many times. And as long as you're living in primary selves, you keep attracting the same opposite types into the system over and over and over again.